Welcome to the Ultra World Podcast, the soccer fan's voice from the stands, with your hosts, Marc and Sean Castles, coming to you from Radio Waves Studios in New York City. Now, let's kick off the show.
Well, hi again, everybody. Marc and Sean Castles, as usual, here on the Ultra World Podcast, and we welcome you to this episode. And as promised, after last week ran a little bit long, we are tacking on some extra time today. How much of this World Cup is going to provide a launching pad for the new generation of fans, and how much can this sport grow? Because we hear all the time about youth soccer being the biggest participation sport in the country. It hasn't translated to crowds and ratings over the course of the last 32 years. So what is it going to take?
Is that me?
You want to go first? I'll go too. I mean, I'd like to hear what you say first so I can play off it.
There you go. I think the numbers, there's a lot of people who have given extraordinary numbers, right, along the way, right? Don Garber, I think, said that by 2010 we'll be winning the World Cup. And they set these expectations that are unrealistic. And the sport is growing by any metric, any measure, at any level, at any age. If you compare where the sport was, if you want to take 94, if you want to take 96 when MLS was created, if you want to take 2000 as a change of millennium, any place that you want to go, there's been growth. Now, has it been the explosive growth that people have promised us? No, but has it been very strong growth? It has been. But you can't expect, every time I hear people trying to compare, well, we're going to be bigger than the NFL by the year, blah, 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 I just want to smack them. Because there's nothing bigger than the NFL right now. And the NFL, the only way anything's going to become bigger than the NFL is if the NFL screws up and implodes. Okay? It's going to be the NFL that screws themselves up. Right. It's not going to be massive growth of the NBA, baseball, hockey, or soccer, or any other sport that's going to go and take over. It's just not. So with the rating levels and the attendance levels that MLS has, people should be happy. I'm not saying that they should be satisfied, but they should be happy because MLS worldwide is a top 7 league in attendance.
Depends, in attendance. Sorry.
In attendance.
All right.
It's a top 7 league, just behind Italy and fighting with Mexico. That's who have had a massive advantage in years in growth of the sport being embedded in the culture. So when people say, well, it doesn't grow, whatever, it has grown, but it's just not going to meet the expectations that some people have set, which to me have been outrageous.
I think the only thing that would hold back exponential growth after this World Cup is the fact that, and I'm going to go back to what I said, being at one of these events, being able to attend one of these events, it's in your country to be able to go to the World Cup. The Canadians, or maybe you go north of the border to see it, maybe you go south of the border if you're in the States. And we kidded about the ticket prices earlier, but it's, I don't know what Roberto's experience is, but I know a lot of people. First of all, when you're in our positions, everybody asks us if we have access to tickets, which of course we do not. And so we have to give them the bad news right off the bat. But then, well, how do I get them? I said, well, there's 25 different lottery. I don't know. I mean, you see these things. You see people talk about how it's been so difficult for the average supporter to get a ticket or afford it or be able to bring their family or I've really been disenchanted with that part of the process because more eyes will be on this World Cup probably than ever before because, we are embedded in that Saturday morning, Sunday morning. You can watch a game every day. You're going to watch a game.
Absolutely.
But people are used to waking up on Saturday morning and watching a couple of games. Whether it's at the pub, whether it's home having a coffee, and so more eyes have been on the sport. So I think more eyes will be on this from a television standpoint. But going to the games is where passion is developed, and I just think if there's one thing that will hold us back in that particular growth, it's that.
And I think if you're going to have 6 or so mini Super Bowls, we've seen the NFL price out the everyday fan. Super Bowl tickets are, I'll tell a quick story. When the Giants played the Ravens, Super Bowl 35, obviously 25 years ago, I walked around outside the stadium in Tampa with $1,100 in my pocket trying to buy my way in. I could not buy a ticket from a scalper for $1,100. It was the best money I never spent, and I wound up in the RV parking lot with Ron Dixon's family as he returned the second half kickoff for a touchdown. It was awesome.
Wow. Why weren't they inside?
Jason Sehorn is still trying to catch the guy on that first pass.
Oh, man. But see, they priced the fans out of, being able to go to these games. And I think that's going to be a problem for the World Cup, is it's going to be too corporate.
But there's one difference, okay? So the NFL uses the Super Bowl, right, to pay off basically all of its corporate sponsors. And so you might be playing the game in an 80,000-seat stadium, but really there might be only 15 to 20,000 tickets available to fans, and that might be a lot. Okay, this isn't the case here. And now with Johnny Infantino, he's made me miss Sepp Blatter. That's how bad the situation is. That I yearn for Sepp Blatter because of the amount of money that they're trying to make on all of this. The fact that they've put dynamic pricing on every single game. The fact that if you have a ticket and you want to sell it, then FIFA gets 15% of the sale and 15% of the buy. So, every time that the ticket moves, they're getting 30% of the ticket value as it goes up and down.
Oh, yeah.
It's a scam.
It is when I remember reading that in The Athletic, I called everybody I knew. I said, am I reading this correctly?
Yeah. I thought it was a typo. Huh? I thought it was a typo. I said, this can't possibly...
It's a scam.
Logically makes no sense.
But beyond that, all right, so now you can't get into the games because you can't afford it, right? Which I've met many families, I'm talking multiple families that can't. Now the fan fests are being affected because the monies that the federal government had promised to supply the different areas for security purposes has not been allocated. And part of what it's forcing all these fan fests to do ultimately is charge people to get in. Right. And that's the whole basis of the fan fest. It's free, come on in. We've got big monitors all over the place overlooking the Hudson at Liberty State Park, and Liberty State Park is no more.
Yep.
And they haven't announced what they're going to do. Liberty State Park is still there. I'm
right.
saying
it's not going anywhere, but the fan fest will not be there.
Yeah, the fan fest.
No, but the other part is like in Foxborough, right? The town of Foxborough, which is a very small little town, but that's where Gillette Stadium is, and they're not going to approve. That FIFA needs a license to be able to hold the games there, and they're not going to approve it because they need $8 million that they were promised for security, and nobody is giving them the money. And they say, if we don't see the money, we're not going to give you.
And I believe the deadline is March 30th. They've given FIFA a deadline.
Yeah.
Didn't Kraft put in? Kraft said, "I'm putting up $1.5 million," but they still have to bridge that gap, that $6 million gap.
Yeah, but they're not going to do it. They said, we're not voting for it. If we have to put a penny in, we're not voting for it.
Yeah,
and that's that. And they're right. They're right.
So look what we're talking about. So look, you asked a question about will this spur the growth of soccer?
Right.
You're talking about youth soccer. You're talking about all these different, and we're talking about this, and that is the problem.
Big problem.
We should be talking about the game,
and we're not. And that's why it's going to be different from 1994. Of course. Obviously, now we have a league that's been around for 30 years, and that puts us in a different place. But as far as the type of bounce that one would expect, as long as there are these many negative stories, I don't feel the excitement for the World Cup. Right now, and I'm in this, and I love the sport. I live and die for the sport. And right now, I don't feel the excitement, and I think it's a problem. I don't think I'm alone in this. And this is the way that they've screwed this up. And let's see if that once the games start, if everything changes, because normally it does. But right now, there could be stadiums where they're half empty because people are just not going to be able to afford the tickets.
There are tickets available for the U.S. men's national team's opening game. Their opening game, which was previously told to the public that they were sold out. There are now tickets available because of this pricing that because that game it costs more money because it's the opener versus the other two group games. Yep. So what people have done is they've gone off game one, go to group the second and third games of the group, and now game one is not a sellout. It is. I mean, this kind of story is really remarkable.
And we saw that last summer with the Club World Cup too. With prices, I mean, you could get in for $20 to some of the games in the Meadowland.
But not originally.
Yeah.
You could at the end because all of a sudden they were an emergency pricing.
Right.
But originally those games were $200.
But that's not even resale where people are just trying to dump the tickets.
I know that.
These are unsold tickets. And I mean, if you have that for any of the major venues for the World Cup, that's so embarrassing.
Right. Can you imagine if you're the person sitting in seat, section 330, row A, 1 and 2, and you paid $300 for your tickets, and the guys right next to you paid $20? I mean, how pissed off are you going to be?
That's a problem if that's the original sale price. And I remember we had a whole big hullabaloo at Yankee Stadium several years ago where team management was upset that people were getting in, the peons, if you will, the plebes were getting in for $10 each.
Us.
But those were resale. They're selling, for the original price. Those games are sold out for the most part. I don't know why any team would care how much the resale is for. It just doesn't make any sense to me. This is completely different, though, obviously. These are unsold tickets that you're going to have to paper the house to make it look good for TV.
Yeah.
Well, they're waiting for the 15% over 15% deal to ignite.
That's just
for
ridiculous.
them to.
I'm going to pull us off ticket pricing here and ask some other questions here, guys. But because I really want to know, how is you guys doing the play-by-play? You guys do across various different sports. What is the difference? And I'm sorry to pull us in here. What is the difference between soccer play-by-play? What different muscles do you need to use compared to NFL, compared to baseball? What are some of the differences you find in announcing that?
I'll let you go first.
Well, I'm primarily soccer, and I did multiple sports from 1980 through 88 when I worked for Mark Chernoff at WDHA and WMTR, so I did all kinds of sports. I'm going to focus on soccer to answer your question. Roberto will get into the football. Roberto's done curling across his career.
That's one that I have.
All right, I thought you did curling. But here's what I say about soccer. And I think this is really important because I feel like I'm still trying to get better with each broadcast. I listen back and I ask people to listen to me that I trust so that I get some feedback from them.
You suck.
I tell them that all the time.
Exactly. But I think it's really important. My advantage has been I've coached the game most of my life. So I also studied to be a broadcaster, and I did it for a while, so I can articulate what I'm seeing pretty well. But the thing that really I learned early on in doing this New York City FC gig is before the game kicks off, before you start, you have to visualize, you already know what's going to happen during the game, the different kinds of plays, whether it's an overlap, a combination with a forward and the midfielder, whatever it is, a goalkeeper's save. But imagine what you're going to say in those situations, and I write it down. And before every game, Roberto, if you come over to my booth, I'll show it to you. I have a book, and I open it up, and I look at all the different phrases that I've come up with to remind me how to describe certain situations. Now, I did baseball a long time ago, and I remember the challenge with baseball was, it's so slow-moving, and all of a sudden there's runners on second and third. The guy hits it into the gap, and all hell is breaking loose. And you have to describe that in a excited but also kind of methodical, well-descriptive way. That's the challenge of baseball to me. Soccer, the challenge is how to incorporate your color broadcaster at the right times and making sure that they're out when you have to really talk about the things as they get close to goal and that sort of thing. But I really think preparation in understanding and visualizing what you see and how you're going to describe it, I believe that's one of the things I've learned along the way.
For me, it's how I've done play-by-play and I've done color. I started more doing color, and then I moved to the play-by-play seat. And it was, I think what's helped me is being able to have been in both seats and being able to know what I need as a color guy and what I need as a play-by-play person. And doing play-by-play now more than anything else, it's like, how do you incorporate your color guy? And over different sports, it's different. So in the NFL, after every play, you basically have time to let your color guy come in and do, and explain what happened. So my job always is, who has the ball, what is he doing with it, and where it is on the field. Those are the most important things for me. And then after that, so you got to leave the color guy to be able to explain why all of that is happening. And so in TV, it's the medium to me, it's more of a medium of the color guy. Radio is more of a medium of play-by-play because you have to be more descriptive. You have to tell people where the ball is, especially in soccer. And I have one quick story on this, is that I was working at ESPN, and I got to work with a guy named Alex Pareja, who's just a brilliant, brilliant color guy. Now, he's very used to working with Hispanic play-by-play guys who basically dominate the microphone. And in Spanish, a lot what happens, which is very different from English, is that they almost do like a radio broadcast on TV. And to me, that's not great. I don't like that, but that's the way basically it is. And I told him, and I went up to him and I was like, hey, we're going to do this MLS game together. And I said, I want to explain to you how I work and what my job is, the way I see it, so we can have a great broadcast. And I said, if I do my job right, you're going to shine, because my job is going to be basically to set you up. And different from what the other guys do, if I hear an opinion of yours that I may not 100% agree with, we're going to talk about that on the air. I'm going to challenge you, but in a fun way. Okay, so we'll keep it light that way. But my job is to make you shine. And so we did the broadcast together. It was the first time. It went really well. I was so happy. And at the end of the broadcast, as I'm going out through the outro, and I said, Alex, this was great working with you, and we'll be doing Philadelphia against New York next week, so see you then. And he literally got up from his seat. He came over and hugged me, and he said, this was a great experience. Thank you so much. And then I went and I did the outro. I never had anybody do that. And to me, it was like so important, and it was just amazing to feel, because I did what I wanted to do, which was make him the star of the show. And at the end of the day, the broadcast became the star of the show, and not really him or me, but the broadcast did. And so that's what I do, because I want to serve the people. I always say, I don't work for whoever's paying me, I work for the people who listen to me.
I have another question that's jumping in on this, and this is including a question for Mark here, because there is now a rise of where the announcer is not at the stadium, where the announcer is working from their studio at home, whether it's the Olympics, whether it's the soccer. Have you guys have any experience with that, where you're not at the game, but you're calling the game and your colleague's not even with you? What is that like?
Well, last weekend, the Philadelphia Union only can secure one spot for road radio. We're one of the few outfits in MLS. We're very fortunate and privileged that we have both English and Spanish radio, and we both travel with the team. So we're in the stadium, whether it's at home or on the road, we're in the stadium calling the game. Philadelphia only has one spot. So Maddie and I called the Philadelphia Union game, the big 2-1 exciting victory for New York City, off a monitor. We have the use of Vista World, which a lot of people in broadcasting are familiar with. They do a lot of the studio, at-home studio broadcasts. So a lot of what you see when you see these games where the announcers are not at the game, Vista World oftentimes is doing the production. And all I can say is we had a couple of moments in the game, and everything is at the expense of the Apple director. So if the director is in a replay, and this happened once on the weekend, in a replay too long, and you're wondering what just happened, because now all of a sudden you see something as they come back, and it was like, wow, I'm not 100% certain of what just happened. Fortunately, in this event, a goal wasn't scored, because if that were the case, then it would have been poor. But so that, there's nothing like being at the stadium. Calling it off the monitor has become the trend. I would say overall, not just MLS, I'm just saying overall, games that you watch on TV nowadays, a majority of them are done out of a studio. So as broadcasters and as young broadcasters hoping to make the grade, you're going to be calling games off of monitors 100% at some point in your career.
Yeah, and that's hard. And you guys aren't even in the same. You guys are probably somewhere else. Or are you guys in the same?
Well, there's
room?
a couple of ways to do it. We had a system called Kisway where I was in Jersey. This was during COVID. I was in Jersey. Maddie was in Manhattan, and Roberto was using the same service. Ariel was in Queens, and Roberto was in Manhattan. Or, however that worked, and. Yeah, so there's that, but we now have a service where we have to both be in the building. So Maddie comes over to my house. I have a basement studio. I serve him dinner, and we do the broadcast.
And I do it from my living room up in Washington Heights. So Ariel comes over, and as a matter of fact, and during the snowstorm, he wound up getting stuck. So he did the first half, and then I let him go home because they were closing all the bridges at 9 o'clock. This is game one against the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And and so they're closing all the bridges. So at 8 o'clock, I said, go home. I'll do the rest of the game on my own.
Yeah.
He left. His Uber never showed. And once the game ended, I was like, so where are you? And he was like, I'm going to take a subway. He goes, you can't cross the bridge. You can't get into the Bronx. And I said, come back, and he wound up staying at my house. So that winds up happening. I want to tell you a funny story, Glenn, that while we were in Philly calling the game, the left corner of the stadium for us, right, from our vantage point, which is camera, the midfield, we couldn't see that area. And so we wound up missing the fact that Macania got a red card. We couldn't see it.
It's a pig.
Wow.
We couldn't see it.
Why, I'm trying to picture that. Why you couldn't lean out
Even leaning out, I couldn't. The way that they set up the desk.
This is why we love the new stadiums. Like Etihad
I was
Park
gonna ask
is
you
going to
about
have.
that.
Yeah, the new stadiums are really. But you know what happened with this, and we're thankful. Sam Cook, our director of communications, he took our pictures and our advice as we went around all the stadiums. What I remember specifically is St. Louis City built this beautiful stadium, but the broadcast booths are horrible because they have these big poles, right in the middle of the broadcast area. So you have to constantly lean and poke your head out. And this is a brand new stadium. So most of them though are outstanding, excellent, and ironically, our best view, our best broadcast vantage point is at Gillette Stadium, which is the worst soccer field in MLS probably. But we have this wonderful, where the NFL. They call the game. We have this beautiful spot to call the game from.
Yeah. So I have to ask, in the few minutes that we have left, the new Etihad Park is going to open next year. How much did they consult you guys, the broadcasters, on what they should do? Because we've seen so many of these new buildings open without very much consideration at all for the play-by-play, whether it's TV or radio, and usually the radio guys get the worst of the bunch.
They took our suggestions. We have no idea whether they're following through and going to utilize them until we walk in.
But they did actually ask you guys.
Well, they asked us about what we saw on the road to help them decide how they'll do the booths at Etihad Park.
They did. And the last time that we were in Cincinnati, which, by the way, TQL Stadium has the best broadcast facility of any MLS soccer-specific stadium. It is NFL quality. It is unbelievable.
They also have refrigerators with snacks and water.
Nice.
Of course, the important thing to him.
The actual good press booth with the good snacks.
But I literally took a video of how the desk is, the space between the desk and the window, so we can put our cables from behind, the level of the desk, the height, where all the boxes are for us to be able to plug in. All these small little details.
They matter.
Which they matter, because in some places it's a nightmare. By the way, Audi Field in D.C. is a freaking nightmare. We're literally in a fishbowl behind press row next to the end line, and we're enclosed, fully enclosed in glass with a ceiling that is about this high.
Yeah.
And if he puts a pencil, because he always gets a booth to the right of me, and if he puts a pencil in between his booth and mine, it blocks 3/4 of the field.
I have a suggestion. I know it's not going to happen this year because you already made the trip down to Philly, but next time, and if you're there for the playoffs, both of you go, raid the booth, sit on Dave Leno's lap. He won't mind. He won't mind. He's such a nice, and he couldn't join us today because he's otherwise occupied.
Well, he feels bad for us. And we know Dave, and he's legitimately disturbed by the fact that we can't come when we're permitted to.
Yeah.
So hey, it's okay. I mean, look, you work with what you have. we and Roberto, I know, feels the same way. I don't want to be speaking for him, but the level of privilege and how cool, every now and then we're on the road and we'll go like, man, this is pretty cool. Even though we've been doing it 12 years now, it's every experience is different. And to be able to call a game live, so anybody listening that has aspirations, when you can whether it's soccer, whether it's football, no matter what the sport, when you can call a game live on the radio, it is a joyful experience. And if I could take a quote from Alistair Cook, which is one of my favorite, he used to say, I prefer the radio over television because the pictures are better. And I love that.
Very nice. No, it's a better experience for the fan that's listening to us when we're on the road, when we can be at the stadium and we can call a game. We have better effects. We have better, obviously, a view of everything. Sometimes we get information before the game because we happen to be there. Sometimes you run into players, you run into coaches, you get little tidbits. There's a whole bunch of things that can happen. It is a much better experience for the fan, for us to be at the stadium calling a game. Calling them off a monitor is like a last resort. And we hope that if people care about their fans, if the teams really care about their fans, they're going to be sending announcers to stadiums because that's the best experience.
Speaking of fans here, before we have to go here, I want to do a quick lightning round of giving some adjectives towards some of the fan bases, or I'm going to ask questions of what fan base does this sound most like? I know you guys are traveling around the country, you get to meet, you get to interact with some of the fans. So here goes, and this is specifically to MLS. What fans are the most supportive of their team?
Portland and Seattle.
I'll agree. I'll throw in New York City.
What fans are always waiting for the other shoe to drop?
What does that mean?
That means that they know that things are going to go bad, like the Jets. Like if you know, even when you're up, or the Spurs, you know something bad's going to happen.
Oh, that would be DC United. I'll just say DC United.
I'm going to agree. 100%. That's what I was thinking.
What fans are the loudest at the stadiums?
Well, what is the loudest? I'm trying to go by what the players say because they're down there and the coaching staff. And I will say TQL is the one that sticks in my mind, and that's where Cincinnati plays.
Cincinnati is one. Portland is another because it's just all game long, hours before the game and sometimes way after the game.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Seattle's pretty damn loud.
Seattle has one of these great walk-ups. They were the originator of the walk-up in MLS, I think. And it's just such a massive supporter experience.
I did that once. It was fun.
What are the most clever fans? What are the most clever fans with their songs and chants?
Who's got the tifos? I don't know.
I love LAFC, by the way.
LAFC?
They're
all right, we'll go.
Their fan base have the best chance. I mean,
They're creative capital.
The rhythm of the stadium at an LAFC game is unequaled in MLS.
And then what fan base would you not want to meet in a dark alley?
Orlando City. Orlando City. They and New York City. I mean, they've literally waited for New York City fans and the supporters to leave the stadium to attack them. Seriously,
like little Dodgers Giants there then.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Okay, no Orlando games. All right, last one I have is what fans always expect to win and always expect to be at the top of the league.
That at the moment would be. Oh, that's a rough one because MLS
should be Miami.
You know
right?
why? Because I'm trying to avoid Miami with this.
Yeah.
Right now it might be San Diego, but MLS is created and built as a single entity ownership structure so that there truly is parity, and there are very few dominant teams that win year in and year out. So that's why I struggled with that.
But I'll tell you Seattle, because they're up there all the time.
Yeah,
and they have a very demanding fan base. I remember, and I don't know if they still have this, that they had the right to basically fire the general manager every 4 years. They put up a vote, and if things aren't going well, they have a vote, and they could get rid of the general manager. I don't know if that's still there, but when
it is. It is. I remember reading. Good point. Very good point. I remember when Garth Lagerwey was there, he talked about it. He made sure that things were going in a positive direction.
And they always seem to be, so they're doing great.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. Thank you to both Roberto and Glenn. For my fellow co-host Marc Renee, that's the end of the show here. Thank you guys for joining us. We are the Ultra World Podcast.
This has been the Ultra World Podcast, the soccer fan's voice from the stands, with your hosts Marc Renee and Sean Castles. Our executive producer is Sue Zizza. Marc Renee and Sean Castles are co-producers. David Shin is our master engineer. Assistant producer Avery Gehrig, and I'm Alicia Antwine. To be a guest on the Ultra World Podcast or learn all about sponsorship opportunities, send an email to ultraworldpod@gmail.com. Be sure to follow the show on all the social media platforms at Ultra World Pod. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved, Ultra World Podcast, LLC.